You are his mother, Simone. Handle it. Derek Lawson said it without lowering his voice, even as their 8-year-old son struggled to breathe beside gate C-12. Micah sat curled on top of a carry-on bag, one hand pressed against his chest, his small shoulders rising too fast beneath his gray hoodie. Rain hammered the tall windows of Crown Meridian International Airport, and every few minutes, another delay flashed across the departure board. Simone dropped to her knees in front of him and dug through his backpack. Baby, look at me. Slow breaths. I am getting your inhaler. Her fingers shook as she pushed aside a comic book, headphones, and a crushed bag of crackers. Derek stood 3 feet away, checking the time on his phone. His navy suit was still perfect. His boarding pass was already open on the screen. The backup inhaler is not here, Simone said. It was in the front pocket. Then you forgot it. I packed it last night. Micah coughed and leaned into her. His forehead felt hot against her palm. Dad, he whispered. Derek glanced toward the priority boarding lane. My flight is closing. Simone stared at him. Your son has a fever, and he can barely catch his breath. He has had asthma since he was 4. You know what to do. I need you to stay while I find the medical clinic. Derek exhaled through his nose, already irritated. I have spent 9 months preparing for this meeting. And I have spent 8 years making sure our son is safe. A gate agent announced final boarding for New York. Derek tightened his grip on the handle of his suitcase. This contract could change everything for us. Micah needs his father. Somebody in this family has to build a real future. The words landed harder than Simone expected. For a moment, the noise of the terminal seemed to fade. She saw Micah watching them, frightened and embarrassed, as if being sick had somehow become his fault. Simone stood slowly. Her throat felt too tight to swallow. Derek, if you walk onto that plane, do not pretend you had no choice. His face hardened. Do not turn this into one of your dramatic tests. This is not a test. Look at him. But Derek did not look. He placed Simone's boarding pass and Micah's beside her on the empty seat, then stepped toward the gate. Micah lifted his head. Dad, please. Derek hesitated for half a second. Then the gate doors opened, and he walked through them without turning around. Simone stood frozen until Micah's breathing hitched again. She dropped beside him, wrapped one arm around his shoulders, and raised her phone with the other. Behind them, the silver Crown Meridian logo stretched across the glass wall. Derek thought he had just abandoned a frightened wife with nowhere to turn. What he did not know was that every plane outside, every gate around him, and the airline contract he was chasing all belonged to her. Simone did not watch the jet bridge door close. The moment Derek disappeared, Micah's breathing became the only thing in the world that mattered. Stay with me, baby, she said, keeping her voice steady even as fear pressed against her ribs. A man in a charcoal airport vest hurried over from the service desk. His name tag read Caleb Monroe. Ma'am, I called the medical team. They are coming from Concourse B. Simone nodded and helped Micah sit upright. Caleb crouched beside them. Hey, buddy. I am Caleb. Can you tell me where it hurts? Micah pointed weakly at his chest. It feels tight. All right. We are going to get you some help. Caleb looked at Simone. Does he have medication? His rescue inhaler is missing. I packed it, but it is not in the bag. She hated how defensive she sounded, as if she still needed to prove she was a good mother. Caleb did not judge her. He simply removed his radio and asked security to clear a path. 2 medical responders arrived with oxygen and a wheelchair. As they placed a mask over Micah's face, he reached for Simone's hand. Is Dad coming back? Simone looked toward the empty gate. Right now, we are taking care of you. It was not an answer, and they both knew it. The medical room was small and too bright, with white walls and a clock that seemed louder than it should have been. Simone sat beside the exam bed while a nurse checked Micah's temperature. 102 degrees. His oxygen level was low, but slowly improving. Caleb stayed near the door, making calls and bringing a cup of water Simone never touched. You do not have to stay, she told him. I know, he said, but you should not be alone right now. The kindness nearly broke her. 3 years earlier, Simone had stood inside another Crown Meridian terminal wearing a plain blue uniform and helping stranded passengers rebook flights during a winter storm. Back then, most employees knew her only as Simone Carter, a quiet operations specialist who asked too many questions and remembered every name. They did not know she controlled the voting shares her father had placed in the Carter Aviation Trust. They did not know she had spent years learning the company from baggage handling to route planning, because she refused to lead something she did not understand. Derek had met her at an aviation conference in Chicago. He liked that she took the train from the airport instead of hiring a car. He said he admired women who did not need attention. When they married, Simone let him believe her family money was modest and distant. She wanted Micah to grow up with birthday parties in the backyard, public school friends, and parents who loved each other without checking bank statements. Derek once told her, "I want to earn my place. I do not want anybody handing me a life." She had believed that was pride with dignity. Over time, it became something else. He started measuring people by titles, access, and what they could do for him. The more successful he became, the smaller he made her feel. In the medical room, Micah finally fell asleep. Simone stepped into the hallway and checked her phone. No message from Derek. No missed call. Nothing. Her thumb moved through her contacts until it stopped on a name she had avoided for years. Marcus Carter, chairman. She stared at it for several seconds, then pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Simone. Her voice almost failed her. Uncle Marcus, Micah is sick. Derek left us at gate C12. There was no confusion in Marcus Carter's voice. No wasted questions. Is Micah safe? Simone looked through the glass wall of the medical room. Her son was asleep beneath a thin white blanket, the oxygen mask still covering his nose and mouth. He is stable for now. His fever is still high. Marcus exhaled slowly. Where is Derek? On a flight to New York. Silence filled the line. Simone could picture her uncle standing behind the wide desk in his office, one hand resting against the window, forcing himself not to say what he was thinking. I am sending the aviation medical team to you, he said. I will have security meet them. Do not pull Derek off the plane. Simone, please. Micah needs help. That is the only emergency right now. Marcus lowered his voice. You do not have to protect that man. I am not protecting him. She looked down at her wedding ring. I am making sure nobody can say I acted out of anger. Marcus understood. He always had. Then everything will be documented. 10 minutes later, the atmosphere outside the medical room changed. A pediatric transport nurse arrived with 2 members of Crown Meridian's emergency care team. Caleb straightened when he saw the company badges, clearly surprised by how quickly senior personnel had responded. Mrs. Lawson, the nurse said, we have arranged a private transfer to St. Anne's Children's Hospital. A respiratory specialist is waiting. Simone thanked her, then turned to Caleb. You helped us before anyone knew who to call. Caleb gave a small shrug. Your son needed help. That answer stayed with her. He had not asked who she was. He had not checked whether helping her would improve his career. He had simply done the right thing. As Micah was prepared for transport, Elena Ruiz called. Elena had been the Carter family attorney for 12 years, but her voice was warm before it became professional. How is he? Scared. Tired. Better than he was. And how are you? Simone almost said fine. The word reached her lips and stopped. I do not know yet. Elena did not push. Marcus told me about Derek's meeting. Simone stepped farther down the hall. What meeting? Crestline Aviation Systems is presenting its airport automation proposal to the Crown Meridian board this afternoon. Simone closed her eyes. Derek had spoken about the contract for months, but he had never told her the client was Crown Meridian. He knew I worked in aviation. He listed you as unemployed on his conflict disclosure. Simone opened her eyes. He did what? He also certified that he had no personal relationship with anyone holding a controlling interest in the airline. A cold feeling settled beneath her ribs. Derek had not simply overlooked her. He had erased her because it made his paperwork easier. Elena continued. We can notify the board before he arrives. Simone looked back at Micah. His small hand rested outside the blanket, the hospital bracelet loose around his wrist. She remembered Derek saying somebody had to build a real future. No, she said. Do not warn him. Are you sure? Let him give the presentation. Elena paused. And after that? Simone's hand stopped trembling. After that, I want every form he signed on the screen. For years, Derek had mistaken her quiet life for a lack of power. He was about to walk into the most important room of his career believing she had no place there. That was his first mistake. The second was thinking the truth would stay outside with her at the gate. Derek settled into his first-class seat and placed his laptop on the tray table before the aircraft had even finished pushing back from the gate. Around him, passengers adjusted pillows and ordered drinks, but he barely noticed. He opened the presentation he had rehearsed for months and stared at the title slide. Crestline Aviation Systems, the future of passenger operations. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Simone. He turned it face down. Across the aisle, an older man glanced at him. Everything all right? Derek gave the practice smile he used with clients. Family stuff. Nothing serious. The lie came easily. That bothered him for half a second. Then the flight attendant announced they were cleared for takeoff. As the plane climbed above the rain, Derek connected to the wireless internet and called Natalie Pierce. She answered on the second ring. You made it. Barely, he said. There was a situation at the gate. What kind of situation? Derek loosened his tie. Micah was not feeling well. Simone panicked. Natalie was quiet. Your son was sick, and you got on the plane? He has asthma. She knows how to handle it. That is not what I asked. Derek looked out the window. The clouds below them looked soft and harmless from 30,000 feet. This meeting decides whether Crestline gets the biggest contract in company history. I could not miss it. Natalie let out a slow breath. The Crown Meridian board is not easy to impress. They care about more than numbers. That is why they need me in the room. He said it with enough confidence to convince himself. After the call ended, Derek opened Simone's last message. Micah is being transferred to St. Anne's. Please call when you land. He stared at the words. His thumb hovered over the call button. Then a notification appeared from his chief executive. Car will meet you on the runway. Board moved presentation up by 20 minutes. Do not be late. Derek locked the phone. At St. Anne's, Simone sat beside Micah while a respiratory therapist adjusted his medication. His breathing had improved, but his face was still pale. Mom, he asked softly. I am right here. Did Dad miss his flight? Simone felt something tighten in her chest. She could have protected Derek with a lie. She had done it before. She had explained his empty chair at school events, his late arrivals, his forgotten promises. But Micah had seen him walk away. No, baby, she said. He made his flight. Micah turned his face toward the window. Oh, that single word hurt more than crying would have. Simone reached for his hand, but he pulled the blanket closer and closed his eyes. In New York, Derek stepped off the plane expecting an ordinary company sedan. Instead, a black Crown Meridian vehicle waited beside the terminal with a driver holding a tablet displaying his name. Derek smiled as he climbed inside. Nice touch, he said. The driver said nothing. 20 minutes later, the car entered Crown Meridian's executive headquarters in Manhattan. Derek walked through the glass lobby while employees moved quickly around him. His confidence returned with every polished surface and every security door opened in his path. He did not notice that several executives were already watching him from the conference room above. He did not see Marcus Carter standing at the end of the table with Elena Ruiz beside him. And he did not know that Simone, still sitting next to their son's hospital bed, had just approved the final slide of his presentation. By the time Derek entered the boardroom and shook Marcus's hand, the screen behind him was already prepared to show the one name he never expected to see. Derek took his place at the end of the long conference table and connected his laptop to the wall display. 12 people watched him in silence. Marcus Carter sat at the head of the table, calm and unreadable. Elena Ruiz had a legal pad open in front of her, though she had not written a word. Natalie Pierce sat 2 seats away, her expression more guarded than it had been on the phone. Derek smiled anyway. Thank you for the opportunity. Crestline believes passenger operations should be faster, leaner, and less dependent on emotional decision-making. He clicked to the next slide. Charts filled the screen. Wait times, staffing costs, automated rebooking, predictive scheduling. The numbers were strong, and Derek knew how to sell them. Within minutes, his voice settled into the confident rhythm that had carried him through every major pitch of his career. Our system removes hesitation, he said. When leaders allow personal concerns to interfere with operational goals, everybody pays for it. Marcus folded his hands. Personal concerns? Unplanned disruptions. Individual exceptions. Situations that make people lose sight of the larger objective. Natalie looked down at the table. Elena glanced at Marcus. Derek continued, unaware that every sentence was making the room colder. A strong executive knows when to move forward, even when somebody else wants him to stop. Marcus leaned back slightly. And what happens when moving forward means leaving someone vulnerable behind? Derek paused, but only for a second. Leadership is not always comfortable. No, Marcus said. It is not. Derek clicked to his final slide. Crestline can save Crown Meridian nearly $80 million over 5 years. We are prepared to begin implementation immediately. He closed the presentation and waited for the questions he had rehearsed. Instead, Elena reached for the remote. Before the board discusses financial terms, we need to review your conflict disclosure. Derek's smile tightened. Of course. The screen changed. His presentation disappeared, replaced by a corporate ownership chart. At the top was Carter Aviation Trust. Beneath it, in bold letters, appeared, controlling shareholder, Simone Carter. Derek stared at the name. For a moment, he thought it was a coincidence. Then another line appeared, chair of passenger care and safety oversight. There must be some mistake, he said. Marcus did not answer. The lights dimmed, and a video call opened on the screen. Simone appeared from Micah's hospital room. Her hair was pulled back. Her sweater was wrinkled. One hand rested near Micah's blanket while the soft sound of a monitor filled the silence behind her. Derek stopped breathing. Simone. She looked directly at him. There was no anger in her face, only exhaustion. Did you make your flight? No one moved. Natalie slowly turned toward Derek. You told me she did not work. Derek looked around the room as if someone might explain it for him. Simone, why did you never tell me? You are asking the wrong question. Her voice was quiet. You should be asking why you left your son when he could not breathe. Derek opened his mouth, but Elena placed a thick folder on the table. Mr. Lawson, ownership is only the beginning. You certified that you had no personal connection to anyone with controlling authority at Crown Meridian. You also listed your wife as unemployed. Derek's face lost its color. I can explain. You will have the chance, Elena said, after we review every document you signed. Simone reached toward the camera and closed the call. The screen went black, leaving Derek's reflection staring back at him. He had spent months preparing to win the contract. He had never considered that the truth about his wife would not be the thing that ruined him. The papers carrying his own signature would. The room stayed silent after Simone disappeared from the screen. Derek looked at the ownership chart, then at the folder in front of Elena, as if the right explanation might appear if he stared long enough. This is a misunderstanding, he said. I did not know Simone had any formal role here. Elena opened the folder. You were not asked whether you understood her role. You were asked whether you had a personal relationship with anyone connected to Crown Meridian's ownership or governance. She never told me. Marcus finally spoke. She told you she worked in aviation. You decided that did not matter. Derek pushed back from the table. I need to call my wife. Your wife is with your son, Natalie said. Her voice was flat now. The son you left at the airport. Derek turned toward her. You do not understand what happened. I understand what you told me. You said Simone was overreacting. Elena slid the first document across the table. It was Derek's signed disclosure form. His name appeared at the bottom in dark blue ink. The next page listed Simone Lawson as unemployed. The third included a statement that he had no family connection to any controlling party. You signed each page, Elena said. You also confirmed the information during compliance review. Derek's jaw tightened. That was based on what I knew. Then let us discuss what else you knew. Elena placed a second packet beside the first. Internal emails showed Derek requesting private passenger data to strengthen Crestline's proposal. Another message showed him asking Natalie to push the board before competing bids were fully reviewed. Natalie read the page and slowly set it down. You told me the data had been cleared. It was going to be. That is not the same thing. Derek looked toward Marcus. This proposal saves your company millions. Marcus held his gaze. A good proposal does not excuse a dishonest process. Derek's phone vibrated. A message from Crestline's chief executive appeared on the screen. Remain in the building. Legal is joining by video. Derek read it twice. For the first time that day, the confidence left his face. At St. Anne's, Simone sat beside Micah while he slept. His breathing had steadied, and the color had begun to return to his cheeks. She kept one hand over his, listening to the soft rhythm of the monitor. Her phone rang. Derek. She let it ring once, then twice, before answering. Simone, you need to tell them this was a mistake. She looked at Micah. Which part? The disclosure. The contract. All of it. You could clear this up with one call. You want me to protect you from papers you signed. I did not know who you were. The words hung between them. Simone closed her eyes. You knew I was your wife. Derek lowered his voice. Do not do this because you are angry. I am not doing anything to you. She spoke carefully. You left our son when he was asking you to stay. You lied on official documents. You used information you were not authorized to use. Those were your choices. I was trying to build a future for us. No. You were building a future where we only mattered when we were useful. He had no answer. Simone looked down at her wedding ring. For years, she had worn it through missed dinners, broken promises, and apologies that never changed anything. This time, she pulled it free. Her finger felt strangely light. She placed the ring on the table beside Micah's hospital bracelet. Simone, please. His voice had changed. The anger was gone. Fear had taken its place. Come home, she said. But do not come to the house. She ended the call and dialed Elena. Prepare the separation papers, Simone said. And make sure Micah is protected before Derek knows anything else. By the time Derek left the boardroom, Crestline had suspended him, Natalie had withdrawn her support, and security had collected his visitor badge. He thought the worst part was losing the contract. He had no idea that when he returned to Atlanta, the door he had walked out of would no longer open for him. Derek landed in Atlanta just after midnight with no company car waiting for him, no assistant answering his calls, and no idea whether he still had a job by morning. He took a rideshare home, staring through the window as familiar streets passed in the dark. For most of the drive, he told himself Simone would calm down once they spoke face to face. She was hurt. She was embarrassed. She was trying to prove a point. Those were easier thoughts than admitting she might finally be done. When he reached the house, the porch light was on, but his key would not turn. He tried again, harder this time, then stepped back and looked at the lock. It had been changed. A white envelope was taped inside the glass storm door. His name was written across it in Elena Ruiz's clean handwriting. Derek called Simone. No answer. He called again, then a third time. Finally, Elena picked up from an unfamiliar number. Do not try to enter the house, she said. Simone has arranged a temporary residence order while Micah recovers. This is my home. It is also the home of a sick child who needs stability. Where is my wife? She will meet you tomorrow at my office. The next afternoon, Derek arrived wearing the same suit from the board meeting. The jacket was wrinkled, and he had not shaved. Simone was already seated beside Elena at a plain conference table. There was no Marcus, no board, no audience. Just the three of them and a stack of papers. Derek looked at Simone first. How is Micah? His breathing is better. The doctors want him home for a week. Can I see him? Simone's fingers tightened around a paper cup. He said he does not want to see you today. Derek looked wounded. You told him what happened. He was there. Simone, I made one bad decision. She held his gaze. You made it at the gate. Then again on the plane when you read my message. Then again when you told Natalie I was overreacting. Derek sat down slowly. I was under pressure. So was our son. He rubbed both hands over his face. I did not know the meeting was with your company. Simone's expression changed, not with anger, but disappointment. You still think that is the problem. You hid something this big from me. I hid money. You hid your character. The room went still. Derek leaned forward. I loved you. Maybe you did. But only when loving me did not cost you anything. He started listing reasons. The contract could have changed their lives. Crestline expected him to deliver. He thought Micah would be fine. He assumed Simone had everything under control. Each sentence sounded weaker than the one before it. Simone waited until he finished. Had I been the woman you believed I was, with no company, no trust, and no one powerful to call, would you have come back? Derek opened his mouth, then looked down. That silence answered for him. Elena slid the separation agreement across the table. Derek barely glanced at it before noticing a second document underneath. Supervised visitation? He asked. You are keeping my son from me? No, Simone said. I am asking you to earn back the trust he lost. Derek pushed the papers away. This is punishment. Elena opened another folder. Inside were airport camera records, Simone's messages, the medical report, and a list of pediatric appointments Derek had missed over the past 2 years. This is documentation, she said. Derek stared at the pages. What he had called one bad decision was starting to look like a pattern. Then Elena placed Micah's drawing on top of the file. It showed Simone and Micah standing together beneath an airplane, while Derek stood alone on the other side of the page. At the bottom, in a child's uneven handwriting, were 4 words, Dad always has work. Derek's face fell. Simone rose from her chair. Tomorrow, we discuss custody. As she walked toward the door, Elena turned one final page toward him. It contained the official hospital timeline, including the exact minute Micah's oxygen level had dropped after Derek boarded the plane. The next hearing would not be about whether Derek regretted leaving. It would be about whether a judge believed Micah was safe in his care. The custody hearing began at 9 the next morning in a quiet family courtroom in downtown Atlanta. There were no cameras, no reporters, and no executives waiting to watch Derek fall. Just a judge, two attorneys, Simone, Derek, and a stack of records thick enough to tell the story he had spent years avoiding. Derek sat beside his lawyer with both hands clasped on the table. He looked smaller without the boardroom, the tailored confidence, and the people paid to listen when he spoke. When the judge asked why he had left the airport, Derek gave the answer he had practiced all night. I believed my wife had the situation under control. My son has had asthma for years. I made a poor decision, but I never intended to put him at risk. Elena stood and placed Micah's medical report before the judge. At the time, Mr. Lawson boarded. His son had a fever of 102 degrees and was showing signs of respiratory distress. Mrs. Lawson told him that the rescue inhaler was missing. Mr. Lawson still chose to leave. Derek's attorney objected to the word chose. The judge looked over her glasses. What other word would you prefer? No one answered. Elena continued with the messages Simone had sent from the gate and from the hospital. Each one had a timestamp. Each one showed that Derek had been told Micah was getting worse. Then came the airport video. There was no sound, but the image was clear. Micah reached toward his father. Derek paused. Then he walked through the gate. Simone kept her eyes on the table. She did not need to watch it again. Derek did. His face tightened when he saw how small Micah looked beside the suitcase. That was one moment, his lawyer said. Elena opened another file. Then let us look at the rest. Pediatric appointments, school meetings, emergency room visits. Derek had missed most of them. In several messages, he had told Simone to handle it because he was working. The pattern was not dramatic. That made it worse. It was ordinary, repeated, and easy for him to excuse. When it was Simone's turn to speak, she stood slowly. I am not asking the court to remove Micah's father from his life. I am asking for medical decision-making authority and supervised visits until Derek completes family therapy and parenting classes. Derek turned toward her. You think I am dangerous? Simone looked at him. I think Micah does not trust you to stay. The words landed harder than any accusation. The judge approved Simone's temporary request and ordered a review in 90 days. Derek would have a path back, but no shortcut. Outside the courtroom, Marcus asked Simone why she had not pushed for full separation. She watched Derek sign the visitation agreement through the glass doors. Because Micah needs safety more than I need revenge. Before they left, Elena handed Simone one final document. Crestline had completed its internal investigation. Derek was being terminated for false disclosures and unauthorized use of passenger data. Crown Meridian would reopen the bidding process with an independent ethics review. Simone read the letter once, then folded it. She had not asked for his job. She had not needed to. His own decisions had followed him into every room. Derek stepped into the hallway carrying the signed custody order. Is there any chance you will forgive me? He asked. Simone held his gaze. Forgiveness and access to my life are not the same thing. He looked down at the papers in his hand. For the first time, he understood that regret was not the same as repair. 3 months later, Simone would return to the same airport with Micah beside her. But this time, they would not be the family left behind. 3 months later, Simone stood again beneath the bright departure screens at Crown Meridian International Airport, but the place no longer felt like the scene of something she had survived. Micah walked beside her with a small blue backpack, a comic book tucked under one arm, and a new rescue inhaler clipped safely inside the front pocket. You checked it twice, he said, smiling. 3 times, Simone replied. That is what moms do. He laughed, and the sound loosened something in her chest. The airport was busy that morning, filled with rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, and families saying goodbye. Near Gate C-12, a new sign marked the opening of Crown Meridian's Family Medical Support Center. Children with asthma, diabetes, severe allergies, and other health conditions could now receive help without being sent across the terminal. Caregivers could change flights without extra fees during verified medical emergencies. Employees had completed new training designed around one simple idea. No schedule mattered more than a life. Caleb Monroe stood near the entrance wearing a new badge that read Director of Passenger Care. He spotted them and walked over. Look who made it back. Micah held up his inhaler. Prepared this time. Caleb grinned. That makes two of us. Simone had promoted him because of what he did before he knew who she was. To her, that mattered more than any polished interview or recommendation letter. Character revealed itself when there was no reward waiting. Derek had spent the last 3 months learning that lesson the hard way. He had completed his first parenting course and started family therapy. His visits with Micah were still supervised, but he had stopped arriving with excuses. He listened more. He promised less. Simone did not confuse effort with change, but she allowed Micah to see his father as long as Micah felt safe. She had filed for divorce, and she did not regret it. Forgiveness had never required her to reopen a door that had nearly destroyed her peace. As they waited to board, Micah looked toward the gate where Derek had once walked away. Mom, are you still mad when you come here? Simone considered the question. Sometimes I remember how scared I was. Me too. She took his hand. But being scared does not mean the place owns the memory forever. Micah looked out at the planes moving across the runway. What does it mean, then? It means we know what happened, and we still get to choose what happens next. Their flight was called. Simone could have used the private entrance reserved for executives, but she stayed in line with everyone else. She wanted Micah to understand that power was not about being placed ahead of people. It was about refusing to leave people behind. As they stepped onto the jet bridge, he squeezed her hand. You are not going anywhere, right? Simone bent slightly, so they were eye to eye. Not when you need me. He nodded and kept walking. Back at home, inside the top drawer of Simone's dresser, Micah's old hospital bracelet rested beside her wedding ring. She did not keep them because she missed the life they represented. She kept them because they marked the day she finally stopped asking someone else to recognize her worth. Derek thought losing a contract was the price of his decision. It was not. The real price was losing the trust of the woman who had loved him without needing his status, and the child who once believed his father would always turn around. Success can buy a seat on almost any flight, but it cannot teach loyalty, restore trust, or bring back the moment when someone needed you and you chose to leave. In the end, Simone's greatest victory was not owning the airline. It was knowing she no longer had to beg anyone to stay.